Hi everybody, and welcome to another weekly check-in video. I hope you're all having a wonderful week. I am loving the fall weather, although it's been very warm here in Massachusetts, but the leaves are starting to change and the nights are cool, and I just absolutely love this time of year. Today I decided to use my real camera. I've been shooting with just my iPhone. I'm hoping the lighting is okay. My daughter left for Madrid. She made it there safely. Thank you for all the well wishes. I also stopped into the Commonwealth Pen Show. This was the first time I attended the Commonwealth Pen Show, the formal version of it. Last year I did go to their pop-up in Munson, Mass, which was held at a church. And the year before that, I had just gotten into pen collecting, and I went to Bob Slate's to buy a pen case, and they said, "Oh, did you go to the Commonwealth show?" And I said, "No," and I had no idea that it had just happened, but it had happened the weekend before, but I was just getting into pens at the time. So I was really excited to check this out. It was at the Center for the Arts in Somerville at the Armory, and it was a beautiful building where this was held. You did have to park a couple blocks away. I thought it was a beautiful walk. They gave clear instructions where to park, and then you kind of just walk down a hill and over to the Armory. It was a beautiful day. In contrast to Puerto Seca, they had such bad weather in New York for that show, and obviously parking in Brooklyn is way more challenging than parking in Somerville. So the Commonwealth Pen Show did luck out with just an absolutely gorgeous day. It started at 10 a.m. and as I mentioned last week, I knew I was only going to be able to stay for about an hour. My main focus for this pen show was to have some nib work done by Matthew Chen. He had worked on my Visconti pen when I was at the Dutch Pen Show, and he was doing a little bit more fine tuning to it. So we corresponded. He did not go to Yoseca, but he was going to be at the Commonwealth Pen Show. So that was my main priority, because it's really difficult to get your nibs worked on outside of pen shows, in my opinion, because I think the value in having nib work done is being in front of the nib meister, and you going back and forth with that professional and saying, okay, it feels a little scratchy when I hold it like this, or they get to see the way that you hold your pen. All right, I'm here at the show, and of course Matthew was my first stop. This is absolutely beautiful.
Okay, so these are, you do nibs, right?
Yeah. Visconti. Now he's working on a peniter for me, and then I'm going to have him do this. Okay, this was pen number 2, my beautiful peniter, which tends to dry out and also railroad, and the tines were a little misaligned, so Matthew fixed it. So, such a juicy writer now. It's so pretty. Loving it. And now he's working on my Esterbrook collab with Bungo Box. We're doing a cursive smooth italic. Last week in the comments, somebody asked what the benefit is to having nib work done. The best way that I can describe it for myself is that having a custom nib grind done just makes a pen and the nib of the pen more personal to the way that you write. So sometimes people have pens worked on that just are not writing properly. I had a Visconti Venus. It was one of the first pens I bought that was over $100, and it just simply did not write. I was so incredibly disappointed. It was one of the first gold nibs that I had besides my Sailor Pro Gear Slim. I had really high hopes for it, and I just really struggled with it. And it wasn't until I took it to Kirk Spear at the Orlando Pen Show that he tuned it, and now it's one of my favorite writing pens. So sometimes you just get a bad nib, which seems crazy when you're spending what we spend on fountain pens. There should not be a gamble or a question as to whether or not the pen is going to write, but in fact there is, which is crazy because I've bought some expensive pens that don't write as well as a TWSBI or a Kaweco Sport. So it can be really tricky, but I also think that a lot of us who enjoy this hobby enjoy the tinkering, or we expect the tinkering that goes on, the fine tuning in finding the perfect ink that accompanies the pen and the perfect paper that will work with it. So sometimes tuning a nib goes along with that. In the case of this pen, I had purchased this pen because I loved this pen and I loved the collaboration between Bungo Box and Esterbrook. However, the only nib that was available when I purchased it was a double broad, and it was writing kind of like a marker, and I just wanted it to be a more precise writer. So that was my motivation for getting a nib grind on this. So people have different reasons for why they want a nib grind. Some people only like writing with an extra fine cursive italic nib, so they will have things ground down to that. So really, it's a personal thing. I like different pens and different nib widths for different reasons. I like some of my fines and extra fines for when I'm writing in small places. I like my juicy broad nibs when I'm doing titles or I'm feeling more creative or I really want to showcase an ink. So people have different motivation for why they want to have nib work done. And sometimes you just invest a lot of money into a pen and you want to absolutely love it. I purchased a Montblanc 149 down in Orlando last year, and I got it with an extra fine nib. It was a beautiful writer, but I bought that particular pen because it was a vintage pen. It was a tri-colored nib on the 149. It was from, I believe, the 90s, and it had an ebonite, a split ebonite feed. Those were all the reasons I really loved that pen. But I ended up having the nib worked on because I wanted it to be a little bit more of a wet writer. With Montblanc, it's not like getting an extra fine nib from Pilot, so it's still, the width was okay for me, but I wanted it to be a little bit more of a wet writer. So with that instance, I was buying a vintage pen and I just wanted it personalized for me because I loved all the other features of that pen. I also think when you get further along in this hobby and you have enough pens, do we ever have enough pens? I don't know. Some reach that point sooner than others, but you're not necessarily looking to add more pens to your collection, but you want to curate the collection that you have and you want to enjoy the pens in your collection the most you can, so you get the nib tailored to your needs so that you enjoy that pen more. So I had 3 pens worked on by Matthew Chen. This was one of them, and he ended up grinding this down to a cursive smooth italic. So from a double broad, and you can see the cursive italic kind of has a little bit of a stub nib look where it's kind of flat on top. This writes so nice. Also, when you get a cursive smooth italic or a stub nib, you're going to get a little bit more line variation. My side lines are going to be thinner than my downstroke lines, and this is just beautiful. I have in here Laban Aphrodite pink ink, and it's a little bit more of a browner ink than the pink on the barrel of this, but it's a very legible pink, so I decided to put that in there. I'm still not sure that I have found like the perfect match for this, but I do have the perfect nib for my liking, so I'm very excited about this. I also mentioned in my last video that I like a cursive smooth italic rather than an italic, and that was what he fixed on my Visconti. I had gone for an italic grind when I was in the Netherlands, and it just felt very slicey and sharp to me, and I just wanted it to feel a little softer. And also with this Visconti, on my diagonal upstroke, it would sometimes skip. When Matthew first looked at this pen the second time, he said that it looked like the tines may have been slightly misaligned, so I don't know if I bumped something since the Dutch Pen Show, but he made this so incredibly perfect for me now. He did make it more of a cursive smooth italic instead of an italic. He realigned the tines. He made it a little bit of a wetter writer. It is perfect for me. I love when I write on the paper and you can see the shine of the ink before it dries, but it's not making a mess. It's not like a super broad pen that's going all over the place. It's precise, and oh my gosh, the reason I know I love this is because I keep a selection of pens that I'm working on. Most of these pens are going to be in my currently inked for September, but I slowly curate what I want or what I'm enjoying, and I'll take certain pens out and put certain pens in. And then in the morning when I do my journaling and my morning pages, I just open this pen case and I just look at what inspires me in that very moment, and I pull out a pen and write, and I keep reaching for this pen, and that's when I know something is really working. And this is just beautiful. Oh, and what I put in here is Kobe number 31. I think it's called Coast Stone Gray. This was an ink that I got a sample of when I purchased my Pilot Decimo, which was a Nagasawa collaboration with Pilot. in the gradation. I got it from Yoseka. They had displayed that pen with a couple of Kobe inks, and number 31 was the ink that I really loved. So I got a little sample of it. It's been sold out at Yoseka pretty much ever since that pen was released. Then when I went to Stationery Fest, Nagasawa was there and they sold out. So when I got home, I decided to place an order at Nagasawa. There was also another Kobe ink that I wanted at Stationery Fest that sold out. So we're going to talk about those inks and the pen that I purchased towards the end of this video. And I have had this pen, this January will be 2 years. So it's been a year and a half that I've had this and just have not loved it. And now it's an absolute dream. It's just beautiful. I'm so thrilled about this pen. The last pen that Matthew worked on for me was this Peniter pen. I purchased this when I was in Chicago in person at Atlas. I had been eyeing it for a really long time. I didn't have a Peniter. I absolutely loved the material on here. This is the Antici material. It's on the Peniter website right now. And this is in Carrera Brown. I loved the ink window. I thought it was so classy. It has a really bouncy nib. There were only 288 of these made. It is a piston fill. Even with the sale, this was a very pricey pen and it keeps drying out and the tines were painfully misaligned. So he brought this back to life for me. I really wasn't reaching for this at all, which is a shame. On the Peniter website, it's $1,302. I paid less than half of that, but still very expensive. It was also railroading, and Matthew explained to me that typically when railroading happens, that has to do more with the feed than with the nib. But whatever he did to it, I'm not getting any railroading anymore. I felt like the ink flow was a little out of control with the ink that I had in here previously, which was an Athena ink that I bought when I was in Japan. It was a really dark brown and it was just like too much. After Matthew worked on this and the nib was writing beautifully, I came home and I put in the bubble tea ink from Lennon Toolbar. It is almost like a perfect match to the lighter color that is in this pen, which is really nice. So it's fantastic. The only problem is that this dries out really easily, and it's because it has this magnetic clasp, but it almost doesn't even, you almost don't even hear the magnet. So sometimes when I put the cap on, I will twist it and get it to a point where I think it's as tight as it can be. It's really unfortunate that this dries out so easily. So Matthew recommended just using it frequently. Again, all the tinkering stuff that we do as pen lovers, but that I feel like I shouldn't have to do with a pen that is this expensive. So on beauty, I give it a 10 out of 10. I love the clip, it's really wonderful. Like I said, I love the ink window. I love the bounce of the nib. Matthew did a fantastic job. He brought this back to life for me. As far as the drying out issue, it's a little discouraging. I could put a little white lightning into the sample of ink that I bring in. But anyways, thank you, Matthew. So these were my priority at the pen show. Unfortunately, we got there right at, I would say like 5 minutes of 10, and there was only a short line outside. We were maybe back 15 or 20 people, but I did not get through the door until 10:20. So I was really limited on time. I did not buy anything. I barely made it to the Esterbrook table to say hello. I was originally going to work at the table and I had to decline because of the plans that I had later in the day for my brother-in-law's party. And then the next day my daughter was leaving for Spain. I stopped at one table to look at some vintage Mont Blanc ink, and the gentleman who was working came over and said hi to me, and he said, "Hi, I'm Sid. I sold you your Esterbrook last year at the pen show." The odds that the one place that I stopped was Sid's table, I was really happy. I said, "Oh my gosh, I love that pen." So this is what I bought from Sid in Munson last year. So we chatted for a couple minutes. It was really nice to meet Joe Black. Joe had reached out to me and asked if I was going to be there on Sunday, which I wasn't, but he's one of the coordinators and so friendly. Hi, Joe. It was so nice to meet you. Also, when I was at the table getting my nib grinds, there was a woman named Shonda who came over. She was, I think, making an appointment with Matthew, and she was just such a character. She's like, I think she said, "Shonda like a Honda." And I'm like, "Shonda like a Honda, it is so nice to meet you." She was fantastic. And then I met Michelle, on my way out, she came over and said hello. So I was only there for like 40 minutes. 99% of my time was spent at Matthew's table. I did not even do a full circle around. My husband Jay said, I got to see more of the show than you because he was waiting and he got to walk around to some of the tables and see what they had. It's the least amount of money that I've ever spent at a pen show. I was not in the market for a pen because you'll see I ordered a couple new pens from home, so I knew those were coming in. I'm sure I would have done some shopping if I had some time to. I think the lighting was a little bit funky for people. I thought the venue was beautiful. They had this great cafe and they had some live music playing. It was very atmospheric. I loved it. I didn't mind the walk at all. I didn't think it was too far of a walk, but if you had some mobility issues, I can see where it would be challenging because there wasn't really any place to park on the street. I think there might have been like resident parking on the street. There was a cool cafe down the street. So I love Somerville. So I thought it was a fantastic spot. I would be happy to go back to this spot next year. But I can see if you were a vendor and you were in there for 2 days, the lighting might have been tricky. Where I was sitting with Matthew, he had a very bright light. It wasn't an issue there. I think most nibmeisters do everything they can to get up close and personal with what they're working on. But anyways, let me know if you went to the Commonwealth Pen Show. I'm so sorry that I couldn't stay longer. I really look forward to next year. And I think that every year they'll grow a little bit more and they'll tweak things here and there. And I would love to see the Commonwealth Pen Show grow bigger and bigger each year. Next year, I really hope I can stay for the duration of the day and enjoy all the things that pen shows have to offer. So I did mention that I put an order in through Nagasawa. So let's talk about what I got from there because I am very excited about it. I ended up getting the demonstrator pen from Nagasawa. It's a Platinum 3776. It has rose gold trim and it's absolutely beautiful. I've been on the hunt for a nice demonstrator pen to kind of replace the Jinhao, and everybody had some great suggestions. I can't remember the one that was suggested to buy the next size down that wasn't so girthy as the 9019. This is a really fun pen. I have it in the demonstrator form and I also have it in this really pretty blue transparent, but this is just too big for me to be an everyday writer. The X159 is more the size of a Mont Blanc 149 and I really do like that, but these are just slightly bigger. I can't remember the name of the other Jinhao people recommended, but instead of going for a Jinhao, I ended up going for a Platinum. So I really love my Platinum pens. The first two Platinums that I got were from Japan when Jay went there in December of 2022. I got this shape of heart and I also got this calico one. This has a medium nib. This had a fine nib that JJ Lax worked on. I love how it writes now. I like their medium nibs. Their fines are a little too fine for me, so it was great that Josh could make this such a beautiful writer for me. I also have the chai latte shape of heart. This is probably the one that is the closest to perfection for me as far as my aesthetic goes. It's just a little bit lighter than this one. It has a matte feel and I just like the way this feels when I'm writing. I had these three and I was happy to add my new Nagasawa with rose gold trim. I got it in a medium nib. It writes beautifully. I put a sepia ink in here that's beautiful that I got from Choosing Keeping, and I'll be showcasing all of these inks in my upcoming currently inked video. But I ended up saving a fair amount of money by going directly through Nagasawa, and that's what I wanted to talk about in this video. I also got the Kobe ink number 31, and the other ink that I was very excited to get my hands on was the strawberry chocolate that was sold out at Yoseka when I was there. So I was able to get this ink as well. They were also sold out of the darker chocolate color, which I wasn't as interested in, but they were sold out of the milk chocolate, which I did want to get. But I was happy to get these. The price was like 17 or 18 US dollars. So here's the thing. I watched a video from Aesthetic Paper Co. and she said when she bought her Nagasawa pen that she messaged them directly in an email and she was able to put her order in directly through them. It was a much bigger savings. Okay, I just did some quick research to find the different websites. The website that I went through is Nagasawa-shop.jp. that is where I got my pen. I got the 2 Kobe inks, and I also got this little leather protector from Plotter that was sold out on Atlas. It's just this little thing that goes over the rings, and it protects the leather from the marks that the ring makes. Those 4 items, the pen, the 2 inks, and the plotter thing, plus shipping was $25 US, came to $257. That's what was charged to our credit card. When you go through that website, I encourage you to send them an email, and it's right on the site. They got back to me so quickly. When you initially check out, I guess you get charged Japanese tax, but when they know that they're sending it to the United States, they remove that after the transaction goes through. And shipping was about $25 US. So that $257 included shipping. The website that I initially went to is Kobe-Nagasawa.com. And on that website, I only have 3 items in. I have the Kobe ink. The special colors are $29 on this website. Their main line is about $26. And the Nagasawa fountain pen, it's called Senski, the pink gold, the one that I bought, is $311. That price doesn't include the plotter piece, which I think was like $8. It wasn't very expensive, but it's $395 US. So we're talking about a difference of $150 going to the other website and going directly to Nagasawa. The benefit of the more expensive site is it is more user-friendly. I would say it's a more traditional website. It's like any other website you would see. You check out and off you go. But you're paying $150 more for the same items. So when you go to the Nagasawa-shop.japan, when you go there, it's a little more complicated. Some of the stuff is in English, some of it is in Japanese. I had to go to Google and convert from yen to USD a couple times, but it came directly to me. I didn't have to use a middleman like Black Ship or anything like that to get it. It came direct to me, DHL, $25, and it was here in like 4 or 5 days. It was supposed to come on a Monday and ended up coming on a Saturday, so I was so excited. I think it actually came in the day of the Commonwealth Pen Show. So a fantastic experience. I saved that money, and I got 2 inks that I had been pining for that were sold out. I put the gray ink in my Visconti. I'm absolutely loving that. I found those inks to be a little on the drier side, so I initially put the pink in this pen and I didn't love it. I put the sepia in here from Choosing Keeping, and I am obsessed. I think it's just such a beautiful pairing. You'll see that in my currently inked video coming out soon. I'm curious if any of you have ordered directly from Nagasawa, because they were wonderful to work with. The prices were so fantastic and it got here fast. And they do have a great plotter selection as well. The last thing that I picked up was the TWSBI Irish Green with the black onyx. I tend to like the TWSBIs that have the special trims. And I did actually end up filming a video and talking all about my TWSBIs. I feel like I was hard on TWSBIs about a year ago, and I was very much team Kaweco over TWSBIs, and I feel like lately they're a little like apples and oranges. I think TWSBIs and Kaweco Sports get mentioned very frequently by people like me talking about like great starter pens, and I do think they are both great starter pens, but they really bring something very different to the table in each of the pens. So you get huge ink capacity with a TWSBI, you get a demonstrator, you also have a piston fill, you need to use bottled ink with TWSBIs. Kaweco Sports, they're compact, they're pocket pens. A lot of people use cartridges for their Kawecos. The converter for the Kaweco is like the little plunger. You don't have high ink capacity, but they're also great portability. The prices are similar. I had a couple bad experiences with TWSBIs when I used a really heavy shimmer ink from Robert Oster, and it kind of turned me off to the brand, because I figured the reason I buy TWSBIs is so that I can have some really fun ink in there, watch it swoosh around. It's not an expensive pen. I can throw my shimmer inks in there and not worry about it. And I just had a couple bad experiences. Once I got over that and started putting good inks in TWSBIs, or just even shimmer inks that weren't as extreme as those that I had tried, it's been a totally different experience. And now I have been just loving my TWSBIs. And then I found my original TWSBI that had been lost for almost a year, my white with the rose gold trim. I actually just gave Angie a TWSBI to bring to Spain. She wanted the black one, the smoke with rose gold trim. I put Urban Shogun in there, so it had a little bit of shimmer. She really loved it. I sent her off with that. So I did end up getting this. But the reason it was so perfect was because I had been on the hunt to get this Jane Austen Diatramentus ink, which is a document ink, and it is like the perfect evergreen color. I had some credit over at Atlas, but they sold out of this pen so quickly, and I think they had a broad left, but I wanted to get a fine nib because this has the black coating on it. I love the black coated nibs on my Lamy Safari, but I know that it adds a little volume to the line width, so I wanted to get this in a fine nib, and they were sold out on Atlas. So Goulet was the only company that had this in stock. They also had these TWSBIs in every nib size. So I was able to get both of them, and they are just a match made in heaven. And there were two things that I was interested in separately, and it just worked out that they are just such an incredibly beautiful match. So I ended up doing a video, which you will see soon, featuring all of my TWSBIs, and I just thought it would be fun to use all my classic literature ink that I've been collecting. So in one of the pens, I put my Waringal Jane Eyre ink in, and then in another one, I put my Pride and Prejudice ink in. I, of course, loaded this one up. I have more TWSBI pens than I have classic ink, but I thought it would just be fun to show the line variation because I have TWSBIs fine, medium, broad, stub. I just don't have an extra fine. I had an extra fine TWSBI and I got rid of it. It's the only one I really just didn't like. I think I got a bad nib on that. I also bought it pre-owned, so I got rid of that. I don't have extra fine TWSBIs, but I have all the other nib sizes that I mentioned. And now with this one, with the coated black, it writes more like a medium than a fine. So that's going to be a fun video to look forward to. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is something that I've wanted to do for a really long time, and I just have not gotten my act together to do it. I thought it'd be really fun to do a hypothetical video talking about the pens that the women of Bridgerton would use. I really wanted to do it when the last season was out, and I just didn't get to it. And I thought it would be really fun to involve all of you. So I would love for you to DM me on Instagram, or you can leave it here in the comments. I have a preliminary list of pens that would go with each of the characters. Like I'm thinking Lady Danbury, and of course Lady Whistledown, the Featherington family, Eloise. There are so many fantastic characters. Of course, the Queen. I think it would be really so much fun. We could also pick out a pen for like the Duke or Antony or some of the other fantastic characters on Bridgerton. I just thought it would be a really fun video. The main character is a writer, as you know, and I do not want to give away any spoilers. One of my thoughts too, for those of you who know who Lady Whistledown is, I thought of her character at the start of the show and what pen I would choose for her in like season 1 versus what I would choose for her in season 3. There is no wrong answer. I have an idea of what I would like, but I would love to get your feedback. And I thought it would just be really fun to put together a video about what we think the characters of Bridgerton would use for a fountain pen. This is like really nerdy fountain pen thoughts that only you guys can appreciate. So once I hear from you and get my list together, I will put together a video, and I think we'll have a lot of fun with that. So definitely leave your thoughts in the comments. That is all for today's video. I hope that I shed a little bit of light on the benefits of getting custom nib grinds. Huge shout out to Matthew Chen. So I will have a currently inked video coming out soon. I also already filmed my little TWSBI video. I think that'll do it for today. Thank you guys so much for checking in with me this week. I hope you're having a fantastic week, and I will see you real soon. Take care. Bye-bye.